So now we've got Scott Bessent, who is macro guy, so he understands the game. Interest rates are still way above GDP growth or whatever. It's, so interest payments keep escalating. What are they going to do here? How do they get out of this mess of just, because they're going to have to debase currency a lot to pay for all these instruments. What's your kind of framework of where we are and how this is going to solve itself in this cycle, not in the long term? We'll talk about the long term in a bit.
Yeah. So, we're approaching a massive refinancing cycle right now. And that's something you need to consider when you assess central bank balance sheets, bond yields, and the impact across assets, because we're not going to make it through the next 24, 48 months without lower bond yields. I essentially rule that out. And if we get a market that is not willing to play ball, the central bank will essentially have to solve it. So how do we get to a point where the central bank needs to step in? I think they're kind of engineering that scenario right now in front of us. We basically need a market that is sufficiently weak for the Federal Reserve to be able to use the excuse that financial stability is threatened. Because with inflation running a little bit above target still, even though I think it's declining here, and with a debt load that is as fierce as it is, they'll have to be able to use this financial stability excuse to come up with some sort of way of solving this.
So you're suggesting they have to break something?
Yeah. At least I think it's a valid thesis here, because otherwise I think they would have stopped a few weeks ago. That's point number one. Point number two is that if the central bank is a little bit scared of restarting QE for a list of reasons, whether they're political or whether they're related to the inflation pressure, they could find alternative ways of asking the private system to buy the bonds for them. I've floated the idea that
This is why I've been using total global liquidity as almost a better measure, because they're using the private sector.
Yes. And that's a new thing, because, a couple of years back during the pandemic, it wasn't needed, but it's needed now. So they have a couple of options here. One of them is to basically, via regulation, force banks to hold more US Treasuries in their liquid assets. And, if a bank is forced to do so, it happens, right? They cannot do anything about it if they're forced to do so via legislation. And I think that's a very simple way of solving this. So I've talked to a lot of guys telling me that the Fed is cornered here because inflation is too high for them to restart these bond backing schemes. And, well, my response to that is basically, well, then they'll force someone else to fix it. And they could easily do that, even if, let's assume that the Federal Reserve will kind of turn a little bit political here against everything that Trump is doing. Let's just assume that. The Trump administration could itself impose these rules on banks, right, via all sorts of tricks they have up their sleeve. So I don't think that will, avoid some sort of situation where the private sector will have to accept being used as a funding vehicle here. And there are many ways of solving this.
Hey, thanks for sticking around to the end. Look, if you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button and check out the video here on the right-hand side. I'm sure you'll enjoy that one as well. And if you're ready for more, go to realvision.com/join. I'll see you there.